Hello, welcome to Evidence for Faith. It's your host, Michael Lane. I am so glad you are joining me today as we continue and actually finish off our series on Are Vestigial Organs Evidence for Darwinian Evolution? Oh, we've talked about a lot of different things, from wisdom teeth to the appendix, to the coccyx bone, to people who were born with tails, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we've come to the last one I want to discuss in this lesson, and this one, lesson 7, is the thymus gland. What in the world is that? So that's what we're going to get into as we dive into this lesson. So, oh, Father God, please help us as we go through this. Teach us, Lord. Teach us how your creation works and help us to understand. This is not something that shows evolution. This is something that shows a master designer. So help us, oh God, to learn this. Now, let's begin. A while back, I was having a conversation with a few college students. They were all discussing, and I walked in on this, how our bodies fight the diseases that seem to be so prevalent at certain times of year. As they were discussing the role of certain blood cells and organs in the body's arsenal against invading pathogens, one person said the thymus gland. Now, this drew a funny face from another one because this other person said, "What's a thymus gland?" Well, the person who said, it's that small leftover gland that we get from evolution that we don't need anymore. And the other guy goes, "Oh, I get it. You mean a vestigial organ that disappears when you become an adult." What is a thymus gland? It's the thymus gland, for a long time, a seemingly insignificant leftover of Darwinian evolution. It's commonly cited in older books and stuff as being a vestigial organ that is useless in modern humans today. Or is it? Well, first, let's discuss what is it. It's part of your lymphatic system. It's designed with different tissues and vessels. Small little gland, but it's very vascular. Second, where in the world do you find a thymus gland? Well, you have one, and it's located in the upper part of your chest. It sits between your two lungs, behind your sternum or your breastbone, and in front of your heart. Now, in babies and infants, it is a large pinkish gland that's made up of 2 lobes. Each of these lobes contain little small bumps that are called lobules, and these appear on the surface. Excuse me. But after a person reaches puberty, it begins to shrink. The whole gland just begins to shrink. By the time a person is middle-aged, it's very small and it's yellowish in color. Now, the change from pink to yellow comes about because of adipose tissue being added to it. And adipose is just fat cells adding to it. And they replace then the glandular cells. Well, a third question we got to ask is, what does a thymus do? And this is the big part. For the longest time, no one knew what this little gland did. Not until just not that many decades ago did they find out. This is because when Darwin wrote his book, The Origin of the Species by Natural Selection, evolutionists thought that it was a vestigial organ because we didn't know what it did. It's a vestigial organ. It didn't seem to do anything. It's a leftover of various changes animals go through over millions of years as they become modern creatures. Why did they come to that conclusion? Here's the reason. Are you ready? No one knew anything about this little gland. Thus, since they knew nothing about it, they considered it useless and a part of Darwinian evolution. Well, that was like that until the 1960s. That's when things started to change. In the 1960s, there was a Dr. Jacques F.A.P. Miller, a brilliant Australian doctor and researcher who did a series of tests at the Walter and Eliza Institute of Medical Research, that's in Australia. He started this in 1961 on the thymus. And what he did, he was studying the thymus in young mice to try to discover what this thymus, this gland, actually does, if it does anything. What he discovered in 1961 was absolutely astonishing and, let me add, crucial to medical science. You see, Miller removed the thymus gland from newborn mice, and he observed these mice then through their life to see what happened in their physiology and their health. He discovered that this little gland had something to do with the body's defense against infections. Very soon, he published his findings, and then many doctors, one in particular, Miller's colleagues, was Sir Gustav Nossel. This guy, brilliant scientist, began studying this little gland. And on the way, all these scientists, on their way down the road of breakthroughs, they determined that the thymus was definitely not a vestigial organ left over from evolution. It has been designed to do two very important functions. Now, what are the main functions of the thymus? Well, the main function is to train certain white blood cells called T lymphocytes, or we just commonly call it T cells. Maybe you've heard just people talking about T cells. It's a T lymphocyte. A lymphocyte is one of a type of white blood cell that we have to help fight infections and stuff. Now, it trains them. I said they found out that the thymus trains these cells. These lymphocytes are manufactured, not in the thymus, but they're manufactured in red bone marrow. And then they travel to your thymus. When they get to the thymus gland, they will start to mature. And as they mature, they become specialized for a certain function. After they mature, then, once they're totally mature, they enter your bloodstream and travel to the lymph nodes of your body and also to many other organs to fight diseases and infections. Did you get that? They travel around in your blood to get to the lymph nodes, like we've talked about earlier in the lessons about adenoids, like and tonsils and stuff, and other organs in the body to fight disease and infection. But how does all this work? How did it happen? Well, there's something else I should tell you that the thymus does. That's not the sole purpose for it. The thymus is also a member of the endocrine system, which manufactures and releases hormones that control certain body functions. Come to find out, there are some very, very important hormones released by the thymus. We don't have time to go through all of them that they have discovered. I'll just mention a couple here. One is called THF. That stands for thymic humoral factor. It's a lot easier just to say THF. It's just simpler. What does THF do? It maintains your immune system, making sure it's working properly, keeping your body in homeostasis. Second chemical that is produced is a chemical called thymulin. Thymulin was discovered in the 1970s, and it was discovered that it helps these T cells to actually mature. I told you that the red blood cells come there. These T cells come there to the thymus. This is the chemical that helps them to mature, to start to specialize performing certain duties. A third one is thymopoietin. Thymopoietin is a protein produced by this gland, and what it does, it travels through the body and to the pituitary gland at the base of your brain, and it informs the pituitary gland to release certain hormones in your body. Now, this is interesting because many of the older textbooks, when I first started teaching science, always referred to the pituitary as the master gland, that it controlled everything. Now they have found out that the thymus gland is actually under some control of, the pituitary gland is under some control of this thymus gland. This is absolutely amazing. And scientists are still making discoveries in roles of this gland. And they have found out more roles dealing with the autoimmune protection our bodies have. And even, I read some papers dealing with aging, that there seems to be some connection, some scientists hypothesize, between this gland and our aging. I mean, this is fascinating stuff. And we haven't even discovered everything it does yet. So overall, the thymus can hardly be called useless or an evolutionary leftover. As Miller discovered, it's a vital part of our body, helping us to combat invading pathogens, while also using hormones to control the master gland, the pituitary gland. Wow. That is just amazing what this thing all did. So don't think your thymus gland is a piece of evolutionary leftover. No. It's not. It's important for your health and to keep you alive, because we are surrounded and being attacked constantly by all sorts of pathogens, viruses and bacteria and stuff. This organ helps protect us from this. It's not something that came about by random chance. Well, actually, that concludes our series on organs, and I believe I provided that proof that these vital parts that we've been talking about, these vestigial, quote unquote, vestigial organs, are vital parts of our bodies that have life-giving functions. Better yet, they show a design that roars that this was all made by a master designer. Now, we Christians know who this master designer is. It's the Creator God, Jesus Christ. As Jesus wrote to us in his 66 love letters, the following, like in John chapter 1, verse 3, all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Or take Colossians chapter 1, verse 16. And I love this verse. For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. Now, this is talking about Jesus Christ, but the reason I love this verse so much, it talks about invisible things, little chemicals and stuff, like what this thymus gland does. This is so cool. Or look at Hebrews chapter 1, verse 2, speaking about Jesus. He has spoken to us, this is the Father speaking to us through his Son, get this, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom he created the world. So you are not an evolutionary leftover. You're not something caused by just random, made of just star stuff, and by an accident. You are created and designed for a purpose. All of us are. Like in Psalm 139, verse 14, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Thanks for joining me through this series, and I hope this has really helped you. And if you've enjoyed what you've learned today, consider donating to Evidence for Faith. We are a nonprofit ministry. We totally rely on the donations that help keep our resources free so that we can continue to equip believers with knowledge to strengthen and defend their faith. And as many of you already know, and if you don't, we do not have a speaker fee. We will travel to different places to speak, just praying that the Lord will supply our transportations. And a lot of this comes from the donations that people make for us. Well, we've really had a lot of fun with this series. I hope you've enjoyed it. Stay tuned to Evidence for Faith for some other series. We have just wrapped up a whole video series on David and the Giants. Give a listen to that too. So until we meet again, take care and may God bless.